Okay.
All right. Good evening. We're opening the Planning Commission meeting for Thursday, July 22nd. The first thing we will do is take a roll call and see if we've got a quorum for tonight. Commissioner Bovers.
Present.
Commissioner Bush. Not hearing her. Commissioner Moe.
Oh, present. I thought you said something else. I'm sorry.
That's
Or maybe I
okay.
should go inside. Apparently, I'm too distracted out here. Sorry.
It's a beautiful day out there.
Commissioner Torgerson.
Here.
And myself here. At this point, Commissioners Towle and Greenberg are unable to attend and have been excused from tonight's meeting. And we'll do the same if we'll see, give Commissioner Bush just a few more moments to see if she's having problems getting in or anything. At this point, I do believe we have a quorum. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, 5. Yeah. Okay, we've got a quorum, right? Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 of us.
Good.
Yeah, that's good. Okay. We're going to go ahead and get started. This is the opportunity for public comment on items that are not on the agenda. And it's the
Chairman,
same-
if I may, before we get
Oh,
into
sure.
public comment, I do want to note you guys were emailed, but I need to note it publicly that we have basically an adjustment to the agenda.
Okay.
Item number 6, the DA has been withdrawn from this item, from this agenda. So we do not need to speak for it. It is on request of the applicant. And we'll bring it back if at the time that it's ready to be brought back.
Okay. So if anyone wants to comment on that, they could comment now in this forum because it's been pulled from the agenda. Is that correct?
That is correct. Since it's no longer on the agenda, they can speak under public comments on
Okay.
non-agenda items.
Okay. We will now open the public meeting at 7:04 for comment on non-agenda items. You have to unmute. You'll need to give your name and unmute and your address. I see faces, but I don't see anybody waving a hand at us. Hearing none. Have I given everybody enough time or would you like me to wait a little bit longer?
I think you've provided sufficient time.
Okay, thank you. We will close the public hearing on non-agenda items and we'll move along to the approval of the minutes for our June 10th meeting. Let's see, I've reviewed them. I'm going to ask my fellow commissioners if you have any additions or corrections to those minutes for I think it's the June 10th. Is that the last time? I think it is.
Yep.
Yeah.
June
Yep.
10th.
Any additions or corrections? Hearing none. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes from the June 10th meeting?
A motion to approve the minutes from the June 10th meeting. Commissioner
Do I hear a
Bovers.
second?
I'll second that, Commissioner Moe.
Okay. Motion to approve by Commissioner Bovers, motion to tell me again. Second by Commissioner Moe. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any not in favor? Did I hear all ayes? Susan, did I hear you? Okay.
Well, I was debating, do I say anything or not since I wasn't there?
Oh, got it.
I was like,
Yeah, unless you feel like you want to abstain, you can
okay.
trust the rest of them.
Okay, I vote yay.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, the minutes of the meeting of June 10th are approved. Let's see, here we go. Oh, now we're into item number 4 of the EV performance standard for single family residence introduction. And then we'll have a public hearing after that. I don't know who's taking that.
Great.
Jamie?
I can take that. Jamie
Okay.
Burrell, senior planner. And the intent of these regulations, this one performance standard essentially is to make it less expensive and easier for a homeowner to have the ability to charge an electric vehicle. It's much easier to plan for it during construction than to have to tear apart walls and make connections later. This amendment was requested by CED committee and it only applies to new permits received. So existing plats under construction would not be vested to this code. So it's going to take a little bit of time for for us to start to see the new homes being built this way. The amendment is a addition to our performance standards, and that's in table North Bend Municipal Code table 18.10.050. The amendment, as we stated in the staff report that was provided, is consistent with city adopted a policy in the energy and sustainability element of our comprehensive plan. And the building department will verify compliance at the time of final inspection of the home, but the developer will get all their electrical work and their permits approved by state labor and industries. That's who permits electrical work. There are existing regulations under the Washington State Building Code Amendment and through the International Building Code for hotels, motels, apartments, and other similar type rental housing. So we are focusing on, as it states, the single family, the owner occupied condos, townhomes, and that sort of thing. And then commercial also has its own requirements as well. So we anticipate this will be something that will be required at some point. Like I said, we just have council that was interested in kind of getting ahead of the curve on it. We did receive one comment by Gina Clark of Master Builders Association. She said she sent the proposed amendments to several builders also, and I believe PSE, and there was no opposition. So we can look at accepting some of her suggestions and incorporate those if we agree to that. So I emailed a version that included some of her edits. I can share my screen and pull that up when we're ready, maybe after the public hearing. And so we can all look at it together and see if you guys want to make any changes. So that's all from me.
That was the only comment that we got? Was that one?
Yes,
Okay.
that's it. Yep.
We'll officially open the public hearing at 7:09 on this agenda item for the performance standards. Anyone want to speak on that? Name, address, unmute. We'll close the public hearing on that, and we'll have any comments that commissioners would like to make regarding the comment that we did receive, or anything else that we want to talk about regarding this.
Yeah, I've got a couple questions.
Good.
So first question, so it's not a requirement now for this, but say someone was to do a renovation of their garage or a renovation of an existing building, would this requirement now be added to their requirements as well? It's
No.
just new builds of new
Just
houses.
new. Yep, new. So if you replaced, a home or tore down and totally rebuilt, yeah, it would apply to one-offs. I think when you're putting in all the electrical and everything, this is really not even, any cost addition. So if it doesn't get used, we're just putting in the ability to add it. So there's still
Right.
costs. Yeah. So, and our building official did say that most of the panels are in the garages. So that's because it's closer to the utility connection. So almost all the new homes he sees, they're in the garage already. So that's a positive. And that will help cut down costs as well. So.
I'm usually not a fan of adding a requirement like this to code. I'd rather see it as a standard that is available, right?
Mhm.
If you do want to put this in, here's what it needs to look like according to our code.
Right.
So I just from that point of view, I understand it's not a lot of money.
Right.
And especially I like the idea that you're putting it in as just conduit and a junction box,
Right.
not the guts, not the actual wiring. So that does give some availability there. I do wonder if there's not an added cost to that though. Just because an electrician can say, hey, that's just another thing I've got to come in and come do
Right.
to all these houses. And
Yeah,
whether or
and
not
it's
that then gets passed along to the full price of the house.
Right. And it is an additional step our building official has to take
Right.
of making sure it was done. So we kind of tossed that around too. Like I said, it was direction from CED committee. So definitely think that's a valid opinion to have. And, you know, yeah,
You know,
yeah, okay.
it is definitely an added thing. I don't think it adds much more time. The electrician's already in there running plugs into your garage when in a new build. It definitely, obviously, the idea is it definitely makes it easier to add the plug instead of having to either do it on the if a finished garage on the outside of the garage instead of tearing up the walls, or having just the silver running on the outside. You know, the silver conduit that you put on the outside. It's so, I mean, the conduit in the box itself is so low cost. Yes, there's, I guess, some time to run it, but again, I would think it would be with no walls. It's done fairly quickly while you're running the rest of the actual wires in the wall.
Yeah.
So I don't really see it as an added cost to the house. No one's gonna notice the extra $20 onto the house, or
Right,
of
but
thing.
it still kind of flies in the face of what, at least in my opinion, what the code should do. I'd rather see this as a optional. If you do this,
Yes.
this is what it looks like.
There
Then
it is an unusual thing, you know. Normally it'd be something that I would say, hey, let's add it to the building code, but there's very specific regulations to add to the building code, which is why we're adding it to the performance standards, because it's really the only way we can add it. But it was at direction of council committee for us to put this together.
I think if in a year or two or less, the building code adopts something, maybe we remove this so that we're consistent and we don't have an extra layer. So this
Yeah.
could just be a temporary performance standard and then gets removed, and we would be okay with that too. So, yeah.
yeah, I think I would still be a no vote on this, just because I don't think that's what we should be doing. It's a small thing,
Right.
but that's
Yeah.
one of the reasons I joined the commission, is I think that these are the type of little things that
Right.
it shouldn't be part of it. It should be part of standard, but not something that's required. It should be something that, if you're going to do it, this is what it looks like.
Right. Hmm.
Yeah, the biggest challenge on that we deal with, obviously, is that most people aren't building their own home. You know, so if the builder doesn't offer it, they don't get the choice to have it put in. So that's why we look at these kind of things. I almost understand it more if it's a one-off, if it's someone's building their own home, that it's not required. But when you've got a majority of the houses by builders, if they don't offer it, it's not an option, you know,
Right.
for you. So
And it goes back on the homeowner to then make that the change and add that if they want to.
add it, yeah, either tear up the wall or add it on the outside.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, one of the things, I actually wish that they built homes more like they built commercial and put all the electrical and conduit. I would love to pull out my wires and replace them with, you know, a higher voltage or whatever, but in homes you can't, like you can in commercial. So you're stuck with what they give you on the builder. I've been running into it where my breaker keeps popping, you know, and there's nothing I can do.
Yeah, and I'm just for me, it's a proponent for that's the market dictates that. If you want
Right.
that, you buy that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Making it a required thing on the code means everybody gets it no matter what, even if they don't care to have it.
Right.
Right. Yep, and that's the argument, right? You can, if you can afford an electric car or a $800,000 home, you can afford to get the electrical.
Yeah. Well, and you know, that is an option when you buy the house, right? If you're the first buyer, you do have that option of adding that with that build. And then they should have that standard to go back to and say, this is what it should look like. I just, like I said, I don't agree with making it a requirement from the get-go.
I have a question or a comment, or I guess probably more of a question on the comment that we got from Gina Clark.
Mm.
They the verbiage, I guess, really spells it out a little better than, it tightens it up a little bit as far as not more than 10 feet from a garage parking space, provided 2 gang. I don't know what a gang is, but it's power rough into a junction box, a 1/2 inch minimum diameter conduit from a panel to the location of the garage, and mark it as EV charger to allow for future installation, or receptacle outlet wire and breaker may be provided by owner. Is that Is that what the builders are doing? You're just speaking to what you're saying, James? Does this just roll over into?
I think that just gets very much more specific, and we were trying to get as flexible as possible.
Okay.
You know, I disagree with I mean, obviously the intent that came from the part with 10 feet from the garage
Right.
is not the part that I agree with as the intent that council directed us. They want the box, whether the electrical panel's in the
Okay.
garage or not. I actually, when saw that, even thought, well, maybe we should even add an additional requirement that says wherever your electrical panel is, on the same wall, this box should be at the other end, because it's really
Right.
easy to add the box right next to the electrical panel, but it's much harder to run it the length of the garage in the same wall. I'm not saying around the corner or anything, but on the same wall. If it's by the opening of the garage door, then you put this box at the back of the garage. But you know, what she's saying would basically mean that it would never get put in because all of the boxes are within 10 feet of the garage.
Exactly.
So,
That's what I'm
and
wondering.
the other ones again are much more specific. I think what we try to do is leave it up to the builder to put it in so that it works without being very that specific.
Okay.
But I think we kind of agreed. We put the additional language to make it clear that it is for future installation. We're not asking them to put in the breakers or the wiring or the plug for that matter. So.
Okay.
And Judy, the
Yes.
2-gang junction box, that is the right size for what they would need to do. That'd allow for a 240 outlet. I agree. I think if you go even further away from the panel, you're butting up against even more to my argument.
Right.
Is you are adding even more cost to that.
Yes, yes, okay.
Yeah, which is why I think we just couldn't, originally just left it open to just put something so that we can get something in much easier and at much less cost.
If it is going to pass, I'd feel more comfortable with it. I'm okay with the 2-gang because that is dictating the correct size for that junction box.
Okay.
But I would, everything else, like leave it to where we want to put it. The conduit size doesn't need to be dictated here, right? Conduit's conduit. If, I don't think it needs to go that specific.
Okay. Thank you both for clarifying that. I didn't want to ignore what she had to say because I didn't understand about what the gang was and the rest of it. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, I can attest that it's probably a lot more expensive after the fact because I just got an estimate to put one in. So.
Oh yes, it's much more expensive to do it after the fact. But again, that's your choice, right?
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Any other comments from commissioners at all on this? No? Should we make a motion and send it to our, I think we'll probably send it on out of the Planning Commission. And there's a motion on page 8, if someone wants to make it, regarding this. Approval of this.
So I guess this is kind of the first time for me, at least, is if I'm a nay vote on this, can I recommend that we change it to a option versus a
Oh, I didn't know. I thought maybe you were
So-
thinking, but some of this was because it was just going to be introduced like this. I thought if it was specific, more like what this gal had suggested, that was your nay vote.
No.
You can definitely recommend you can recommend a motion with a change of the language that, as an example, could say for all single family and owner occupied townhomes and condos that have garages provide a power, the builder shall offer a power rough-in junction box, and you can see if you have a second and a vote, and then if you don't, then another person can make a motion to approve it the way it is.
Okay.
And then we would present what we put together based on committee recommendation, and then we would present your recommendation. However you would recommend, and then it would be up to committee to again also make a recommendation to full council.
Okay, well
Right.
then
Once we get a motion on the table, I can show it on the screen so you guys can kind
Okay.
of see what.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Okay, so then I'd like to make a motion for an edit to proposed municipal code amendment to say for all single family and owner occupied townhomes or condos that have garages builders must provide the option of a installation of a power roughed-in junction box and conduit from panel to the location in the garage and marked as an EV charger to allow for future installation, and receptacle outlet wire and breaker may be provided by owner.
I will second that, Commissioner Mo.
Second it too.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay.
Anyone opposed? I think we've all said yes on this one.
Okay, so what I'm
Okay.
gonna do is share this and make sure, oops, host has disabled participant sharing screen.
Oh, let me see if I could.
Either that or I can maybe put it in the chat, or I can just reread it, but if there's any other edits.
Okay, I think you should be able to now.
Okay, so share. Okay, so for all single family and owner occupied townhomes or condos that have garages, the builder must provide the option, maybe for to install a 2-gang power rough-in junction box conduit. And then it stayed the same. So is that what you're?
Box and conduit would probably be better.
Box and conduit. Okay, so that's the motion on the table right now. Must provide the option. So that's clear to everyone that wire and breaker and everything else, I mean, is provided by the owner.
We dropped the 10 feet and just went with this. Okay, yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
The way that we would make, the only way the city could ensure this happens is if it were a condition of the plat, like in the case of a plat. It could get a little tricky. I don't know, Rebecca, what you think about like, well, I guess if you're the owner, the single one-offs,
You're making the option then, yes. You're already giving
Yeah.
yourself the
we're
option.
not
So I
having to
think,
verify. We're not having to
Right.
verify. So with a plat, it would be a condition on the plat, and then
and we can make note of it as part of the approval.
yeah. Okay.
So what do we need to do again? We're going to go like this.
If there's no other amendments to the motion, then you can call for a vote.
Okay. Everybody have a chance to read this, commissioners?
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Aye. That was no opposition. It has passed. Thank you for making that motion. And seconding it and getting the wording that is, I think, a little better. So thank you.
Okay, great.
Okay. Looks like we're headed for item number 5, which is page 9 in your packet. It is HB 1220 North Bend Municipal Code Amendments, introduction, and then a public hearing.
Thank you, Chairman, Commission. This is a proposed amendment to the Municipal Code, Chapter 18.06.030, 18.10.030, and 1810.050, which allows through a conditional use permit process an indoor emergency shelters, indoor emergency housing, permanent supportive housing, and transitional housing. This is required by House Bill 1220. That was signed by the governor on May 12th, which limited barriers for these uses and prevents cities from prohibiting these uses. We are required to have an ordinance in compliance with the new law by the end of September. We have proposed to include the definitions per following the legislation and have, as I mentioned, put them in as conditional use permits instead of permitted. We basically tried to put something together in a sense of the most restrictive until we can see how this plays out in other cities and know what other requirements or other concerns or ones that don't have an issue that we can maybe change in the future to permitted use with certain conditions. But because we're under a time crunch from when it was signed to when we had to get it adopted, we kind of put something together that we felt was in compliance with the law, and still protected the city and the neighbors, while we can do additional research on these uses. I'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
Do we open the public hearing first?
You can.
Yep, I'll open the public hearing. 7:27, opening the public hearing on HB 220 NBMC amendments. Anyone speak to that? Nobody wants to talk tonight, our public. Okay, I'll close the public hearing, and we'll go ahead and commissioners and debate this, talk about this a little bit. Any more clarification that you're looking for from staff?
Has this gone through like a legal review of making sure that it is enough to get past the law?
We sent it to the attorney. What he reviews, I can't say. We also sent it to Commerce for review, and it went through that period, and they did not provide any concerns or comments. The biggest one that's kind of questionable is the law requires us to meet our need. We don't know what our need is. We're actually going to be in the process, hopefully at the end of this, starting later this year. We're trying to get a grant next month to do a housing needs assessment that we're going to need for our comprehensive plan update. And a lot of people are using their last housing needs assessment as a look at what needs might be there so that they can ensure that they're covering the amount of people per the law. We are guessing at our need because nobody's done a study to know what our city alone need is for those uses. So you can put, for instance, we put half a mile separation, it could be 100-foot separation if we need a lot, or it could be more if we need even more, or need less. So we feel it's in compliance, although there are some pieces that are up in the air, such as our city's need. But it did go through legal review. This is a completely reviewed ordinance at this point. It's not a draft in a sense of it went to the full review of the attorney already.
I have a question. Does this mean like the city can take over a motel based on whatever they decide they need to take it over and, like, for example, put homeless people in there? Is that what this is about?
It's a good analogy. I don't think the city would do it. What we've seen is King County has been purchasing hotels and putting them as homeless shelters throughout King County. I think they just purchased their 5th hotel throughout King County. So but we can't prohibit it, again, per the law. So we have to allow it. Because we're a small city, I basically put for those type of uses, the emergency housing, this code limits it to 1. So someone can't go and buy multiple, either multifamily or hotels and turn them into emergency housing. They would only be able to do it for, in a sense, 2 hotels one under each definition.
It seems like a big open door for stuff that is going to be that we don't like in our city, and they're kind of taking away our city's power to be able to make our own decisions on how we want to move forward and how we want to help people, and I don't like it.
Unfortunately, they're finding cities nobody wants them, but the verbal, what they hear is everyone's willing to help their own city, but they don't want more than their fair share. And the only way they could come up with to prevent cities from prohibiting them outright was to require cities to get their need. And so, like I said, under the indoor emergency shelter and the indoor emergency housing, we have to allow it in every zone that allows a hotel. And so we've limited it to 1 each in this code, and they can't be within half a mile of each other. And that's the best I can do to protect the city but I can't prohibit it. And we made it a conditional use permit as well. We didn't permit it outright. It goes through this conditional use permit process. Most people are less concerned about the transitional housing. Usually you see those are, they're in homes. Sometimes you don't know they're there, very similar to adults. Care facilities, a lot of people don't know they're next door unless they know their neighbors very well, but you wouldn't be able to drive by and see them as much as you might be able to on emergency housing. But
Is there
we're
any repayment, or I guess they're just buying outright a building? So the property owner that was there,
sold it to them, correct?
okay, all right.
But through this process, they still, if King County were to do it in North Bend, they'd still have to come and get a conditional use permit and meet all of these requirements.
A huge
I-
tax, maybe?
I think restrictive is the right answer, right? Like you said, it's just going to be a fine line of what's legal and what's not to be
Correct.
restrictive. It has to happen. If they pass the law, it has to happen. But yeah, we just have to walk that line of not breaking the law and still allowing it, but not letting it go rampant, right?
Correct.
Rebecca, you mentioned something about we don't know the housing needs because we really.
Correct.
Right,
So I put limited to one each. I couldn't imagine a population of our size would ever need two. So I feel like we're supplying our need for indoor emergency housing and indoor emergency shelter by allowing a single one each. Since I can't prohibit it, I have to allow at least one. And so we've tried to put in a reasonable occupancy restriction, so that we don't have a problem, a reasonable distance restriction, and a reasonable number of facility restrictions,
right.
in order to try and meet our need. And I sat in the planning directors meeting this morning, and I think there are actually a lot of cities that may not pass theirs in time, that they're, because of the short time frame. So I think if there becomes a legal issue, I'm guessing they're going to go after the cities who didn't adopt an ordinance first versus the cities who at least adopted an ordinance, and may not, may be a little more ambiguous on what we need. But I looked at this, tried to get something that was in the best interest of the city, requiring an operations and security plan, make sure they address potential security and neighborhood impacts. So I did my best to protect the neighborhood and be as restrictive as we can within the law while we see how this plays out.
Do we have to, when you take count of the needs and because our county is, our city limits, I should say, are maybe not as big as some, maybe smaller than others. If we have a population that is outside of that, our city limits, is that our responsibility? Does it go, where does that?
That would go to King County.
King County, okay,
Mhm.
okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hopefully if we end up wanting to be more restrictive on not the, but on permanent supportive housing and transitional housing, again, in my opinion, in my experience, those are the ones that have a less impact to the community. But once we have that study, if we're, we've put how many families can be in there. If we find out we have more need, then we can reduce the distance. Or if we find out exactly what our need, we can limit the total number. But because we don't know the total number of how many supportive housing we might need, we didn't put really a limit on that, just a distance limit.
Sure.
But, we might be able to say, hey, we only need 5 of these facilities in the
Right.
future. We might be able to say that, but we can't yet.
Does that impact the winter shelter and things like that? Is that qualify for anything or? I don't.
We did put in a very specific item that said, let me find this section. It's under the permanent one. It says it does not, says as used here in the phrase continuously operating is intended to exclude indoor emergency shelter facilities that are needed to respond temporarily to a natural disaster or other similarly acute emergency. So if we have an emergency where we have to set something up because some big area is flooded, it would not, this would not restrict that from happening.
Okay. Thank you. Good debate. Anybody else have any concerns, questions here, commissioners? Comments? Olivia, got a comment thinking about?
No, all I do, I want to thank Rebecca for working so hard. And I know what you're trying to do by helping us stay compliant, but not letting it go rampant right away. So I do appreciate all your hard work. I know it's not easy to walk that line.
I'll, my words too.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, thank you for that. Well, if there's no more comments, I'm just going to get to the page where it says we're going to send it on here. Let me see here, adopting it. Oh, there we go. Planning Commission recommendation on page 11. Someone want to make a motion to,
To recommend approval of the draft
Yeah.
regulations as provided.
as provided herein?
Page 11.
That you can just, so motion, the recommend approval of the draft regulations proposed.
I so motion to, oh wow, no, I can't do that. I'm sorry. I can't remember things like that.
Just say that's fine.
Yeah.
Just recommend approval of the draft regulations. That's fine.
Okay, I recommend approval of the draft regulations
As presented.
as presented.
I'll second.
Sorry, thank you.
Seconded by Mr. Bovers. All in favor?
Aye.
I
Aye. No nos? No. Motion made by, sorry, Commissioner Mo, second by Commissioner Bovers, passed, all in favor of aye. There you go.
Just so you guys know, we actually were discussing this motion situation.
Yeah.
So we're going to actually start on our staff reports at the very top where we have the staff report and the proponent. We're going to add underneath the proponent staff recommended motion. So it'll be a lot
Okay.
easier to find and read the motion for you guys. I'm actually used to having where I came from in Southern California, the agenda always had the title and the recommended motion right on the agenda. So I don't plan on changing the agenda for the commission, but it makes sense to have that recommended motion. We do it for council. Their agenda bill has it right at the bottom, the wording for the recommended motion. So it doesn't make sense that we don't offer it to all of our commissions.
We'll take
So
that.
we're going to work on changing that and putting a very clear recommended motion at the top. That's just the one sentence motion
Thank you.
on there to help you guys out.
Well, I appreciate it all the way around. Yeah, yeah. Or deny it, one or the other. Yeah, I get it.
Still gives you the option to change the motion, but at least we'll have put it out there for you.
Okay, well, we've done that, and let's see, number 6 was pulled.
So it's just adjournment. We're done.
We can, so we don't have to have that August 12th meeting. We've done our job, so you can, okay.
Correct. We would have had to ask for the August meeting if you guys decided to continue item number 5, because we again have a deadline to get it approved, but you guys made the motion, so we're good to move it on to committee.
Thanks to all your hard work, we did it, so. Okay, it looks like the next time that we shall meet will be, wow, August 20 something. I think I have it on my calendar, but let me know. I know,
I can pull up my calendar.
August 26th.
Yeah. Wow.
Yep.
Okay, we'll see. I hope to see everybody August 26th. Do we need a motion to adjourn? Can we do that one? No, okay.
You don't need one. You can just say we adjourn at and give the time.
We will adjourn, we adjourn at 7:41. No, we don't even need the favors, nothing. We're just done, right?